Hey everyone, one of my favorite lessons from the Torah is actually in this week's Torah portion. You may have heard me say it before, but I'll say it again because I think it's so powerful and important. We know the story of Joseph where he's in the house of Potiphar, the great dignitary out in Mitzrayim, and his wife, the wife of Potiphar, is infatuated with Joseph. He was of extreme handsomeness and beauty, and she also was known to be a beautiful woman. And daily, she's trying to seduce him, day in, day out, and he says no. He keeps rejecting her advances, finally to the point where one day everyone's away from the palace. She grabs his coat. In order not to succumb to the sin, he slips out of it quickly, he runs out of the room, and he flees out of the room and runs out of the house. But you look at the actual words in the Torah, it says, Vayanas vayetze achutza. He flees from her and he runs out of the house. Now, Joseph did one of the most great acts of self-control by running out of the room, even when faced with this challenge. But it didn't just run out of the room. It doesn't just flee. Vayetze achutza, he went outside. What's the significance? What's the need for this double lashon, the double wording of the Torah? It's obviously the Torah doesn't waste words, so it's for a message. It's telling us that Joseph understood something, that even though he was so in control of his challenges and his desires, he realized, I fled, that's good, that's a win. But if I stay around this house right now, there's a chance that I may succumb to the sin once again. And I have to get out of this room and get out of this house as soon as possible. It's a message that all of us have to really understand, is that the evil inclination is always trying to get us to sin. But the sin never happens at that exact moment necessarily. Sometimes it could be developed over time. And we, instead of putting ourselves in a situation and overcoming it at that time and saying, wow, we're so great, the true sign of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, is to block it and make sure that never happens in the first place. We may think, no, that's a person that's weak. Being around coworkers that in a promiscuous way and not being able to overcome it, just for an example, being able to overcome it, that's a sign of strength, and not overcoming it's a sign of weakness. True. But what if I were to ask you, what if I would say, put safeguards in place where I'll never put myself in a compromising situation so it shouldn't happen? Is that a weak person that has to do that? Or is that a strong person? Is that a tzaddik, a righteous person? The answer is, by doing such a thing like that, that's what the Torah tells us is righteous. By not allowing our evil inclination, even a pesach, an opening, in order to get us to sin, that's not a weak person. That's in God's eyes the holiest person possible. And we find this in our daily interactions where we could face with the situation. We find it, I spoke about last week, about the internet, having a filtered internet, or having safeguards for our children as well, for ourselves, for our children, so as not to fall prey to that. It's not because we're weak people. We're strong people that recognize the frailty of human beings, and we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. That's strength. That's righteousness. And I'm sure we could find other examples. If you think about other examples, creating boundaries and safeguards is a sign of great holiness and righteousness, not a sign of weakness. And I like to, if we could apply that, I think it will have tremendous impacts in our lives in the short term and the long term. Shabbat Shalom.